Last video I explained how I am in the thorough belief that we have been taught to garden wrong. So this is a follow-up video to that. And in this one, I'm going to tell you the tenets of really how to have a successful garden. This is what I view at Sandy Bottom Homestead, what it means to have a successful garden and what you need to focus on in your garden in order to get that. And then once you start to master these, your garden is just going to take off exponentially the way that you want it to be. The things that I've focused on in my garden over the years, things that we've gotten right, things we've gotten wrong, and all that all culminates into nice solid harvest across the board, a happy garden and a happy gardener. And say hey to David as he prepares our zucchini bed for the next planting. Say hi, David.
Hi.
So these are all things that we should focus on in our gardens. Brief recap of what we talked about last time. Basically, the industry itself is, in my opinion, holding us back from producing food, and a lot of people seem to agree and be interested in that. But I felt like as I rewatched the video that there just needed to be a more positive outcome to that. So I'm here to deliver what I think is a positive outcome. And the first thing that we should all focus on, which if you've been watching this channel, Sandy Bottom Homestead, for any amount of time, would be the timing of your planting. It's very, very important and will change the way you garden completely. Now there's a couple ways you can do this, okay? One is you can just trial and error, work your way through it. Two is do the math. So figure out your optimal harvest time and then go from there and then count backwards for the days of harvest. Three, shameless self-plug. I do custom seed starting charts by zip code. So if you need those, you can email me below and that will get you in a very right direction to start. It does, I mean, full disclaimer, it's not gonna be 100% perfect, but it is absolutely a lot closer. I've done it to myself and I use the exact same thing in my garden. And once I started doing it, it changed, everything just kind of started to click a lot faster. There is a small fee, email me below, whatever. And the other thing which kind of dovetails into the next one is, you know, the planning portion of it. So the planning is very, very important. What does that mean? What does that mean? That means having a solid plan. So why do they go side by side? Because in our garden, we have 9 4x8 beds, 2 3x6 beds, and 1 greenhouse way back there that has 2 2x4 foot beds in it. And when we have all of these garden beds replanted every single season, okay? Now I do understand that it is gonna be a little bit different, and in some areas you cannot constantly plant, but you can plant a lot earlier and a lot longer than you think, and that is something that you need to realize because that's what changes the game completely and will basically make you an expert gardener. I mean, in the world that we live in today, it doesn't take much, but once you start to nail this, you'll get it down pat. You can see we have a full bed right here. Well, in a couple months, we'll have a full bed of something else. We've got a full bed here. In a couple months, it's gonna be full bed of something. This is sweet potatoes. And then it's gonna be cabbages. And then over there, we've got more sweet potatoes in the identical bed, and that's gonna be broccoli. And then here, we've got corn that'll be harvested any day now, and then something else will go in there. And so you can see that we have a plan for this. So this bed right here will be planted 3 to 4 times this season. And then it'll even have a time to rest afterwards. You've got to understand that. You've got to get under control your planning portion of it and really know the ins and outs of what you want to do. And if you're going to ask and need more videos about it, I've done videos this year, all of them are this year. There's all videos about all this stuff back there. I'm just trying to culminate all the ideas in one spot. Now that we've got those two under control, the next thing to really remember, and these next two will go hand in hand as well, is fertilization. Fertilization is every single thing in the garden. If you don't believe in fertilization, try it and tell me then. I don't care. I don't want to hear it. I know. I know, I had a hard time swallowing that pill too. But what I can tell you is once I figured out how to fertilize, and I'm gonna do a video within the next week or two about fertilization. It's gonna be super simple, but the basic gist of it is fertilizer is everything, especially when you're intensively planting your garden to keep it going, to keep the nutrients flowing to the plants. So you need to understand there's two types of fertilization. The first type is feeding your plants, and that's what we're focusing on right now. But then we're gonna go into the next one, which is gonna be feeding your soil. So you've gotta understand those are two different things. So to feed my plants, now remember this too, it gets a little bit complicated, but we're gonna try and keep it simple. We're gonna kiss it all day long. To feed the plants, we also feed the soil. But I know the comments coming, what do you use to feed your plants? And so this is where it starts to get a little bit more unpopular, but I'm really liking the results from what I'm doing this year, and I have zero plans to stop. I use a synthetic fertilizer once a month to feed my plants. Then I feed a organic granular fertilizer consistently throughout the year to feed my soil, okay? Now, on top of that, I also use different amendments and stuff like that. I try to keep it really simple. We do things like mulching. A lot of times I'll put the alfalfa pellets down. I've showed you in the videos time and time again, I put those down and that will help feed the soil over time as it breaks down. Obviously, compost is a great option. All of that will help feed the soil, but you've got to take care of your soil as well. Do other things here as well. We plant cover crops. So this is a buckwheat cover crop. Now we focus on buckwheat almost exclusively here because we have 8 beehives over here and it helps feed the bees during the dearth season. So as you can tell, this buckwheat is in full flower right now, and this is the time in which the nectar is drying up around, so it does provide food for them. But also what this does is it gives us a green mulch, so we can cut it, rot it right here, break it down right in the garden bed. And two, it helps pull the extra phosphorus out of the soil, which is one of the only plants that do that. So we do that as well, and that helps. And then we put the compost down and all that stuff, but you gotta feed the soil. The soil can be, you can have all the fertilizer you want go into your plants, but if you don't feed your soil, you will lose your plants over time, or they won't produce, they will get diseases. Plants with diseases are weak plants, plain and simple. Usually a nice strong plant will not succumb to a disease as easily. I'm not saying it's not gonna happen, but it's just not as easy. So you've gotta remember that. Okay, the next one is water. Water, water, water. If you think you're watering enough, you're not. Water even more. These plants take a lot of nutrients. Look at this corn right here. This corn, in order to get plump kernels, needs to be watered constantly. So we're gonna run the water tonight for 24 hours to finish it out and plump those kernels full of water. Then over here with these tomatoes, you gotta think, it's all water, all of it. You know, you cut a tomato open and that juicy flavor you want, the cucumbers, that juicy flavor, it's all water. You can't, it's almost impossible to overwater your garden, especially if you give it a day or two in between deep waterings, you're gonna be fine, you know, unless you're getting consistent rain and stuff like that. But water is crucial to everything in the garden. It's crucial to life and you need to have it. So we need to understand that. So all of this needs all the water that you can ever imagine. And then that's gonna get you going. So I used to water once every 3 days for 60 minutes, and now I water once every 2 days for 90 minutes in the summertime. And I've seen explosive growth. And then when it rains, unless it's continuous day after day rain, we don't stop it, we just keep it going. It's not a problem. If you have thick clay soils, maybe you do, but we have sandy soil here, so it's not an issue. So you need to know your soil too, and all that goes with knowing your soil health and building that at the same time. Okay, the next thing is to focus on how much you need to grow, okay? So, did he do a fantastic job emptying out this bed? He's really come a long way this year as a gardener. I'm super happy and super proud of the young man. But there's a reason why we only have 2 okra plants. There's a reason why we only have 1 eggplant. need any more than that. I can save that space for other things, other places in the garden, you know. As far as that goes, it's super tempting. So first of all, and this isn't really on the list, but I'm going to put it on the list just because I think it's really important. But starting your own seeds, you don't have to do it by any stretch of the imagination, but it makes it a hell of a lot easier. Because a lot of times what I would do in the past is I'd buy a 6-pack of plants and I felt like I had to plant them all or else I was wasting money. Well, now I don't have to do that. I can plant 3 or 4 seeds and then pick the 2 best ones if I want, give the other ones away, sell them, however you see fit. But that way we have plenty of room in our garden for all kinds of plants to grow. So we plant a lot of some things. You know, we have a fair amount of tomatoes. There's 5 in this bed now. There's 6 total over here. No, there's not even 6. There's 6 here. And then, you know, we've got a bunch of pepper plants because we really like peppers. We do a bunch of corn. 1, because that's how you've got to plant it. But 2, we wanted to get enough off of it to have some in the freezer for this year. And we do a lot of sweet potatoes because we want a lot of sweet potatoes. But other than that, you don't have to go crazy, right? If you pare down what you need, think about how much you need of a certain crop, then you can really start to narrow it down. Your small garden can grow more, and then you can grow more, and you can learn more about different plants much, much faster, right? So the general rule I use when I go to figure out how much I want to grow is I go to your favorite search engine and I'll look up, you know, I did this for Brussels sprouts particularly. How many pounds of Brussels sprouts do you get per plant? I don't remember the number. I think it's like 1 to 2. Cut that in half because I was like, well, I'm not a great Brussels sprout grower. So we'll cut that down. We'll say we'll get 1 pound. How much do we eat a week? Well, we usually buy half-pound bags. We eat 2 of those a week. So during the season of Brussels sprouts, we need 1 pound per week. And then there's 28 weeks within that season. So we need 28 plants. So we figured that out, right? How many sweet potatoes do we need? Well, we need, you know, and we did the same math and we figured it out. How much on average? How many tomatoes do we need? Well, we like to preserve tomatoes. So how many jars of tomatoes do we need? How many pounds go in there? So on and so forth. So figure out how much you want to grow and stick to that in your garden. And that's going to change the garden for you completely. I only need 1 or 2 butternut squash plants. I don't need 15 of them. I only need 1 or 2 melon plants. I don't need a bunch of them. You know, in the wintertime, I need 50 broccoli plants. So I'm gonna grow 50 broccoli plants. You know, so you just start figuring it out that way and you narrow it down more and more. And what you'll end up with is, instead of this incredibly crazy, diverse garden, what you end up with is a well-organized, oiled machine pumping out the produce that you and your family actually like to consume in the quantities that you really did want. And you eliminate having too much. And when I say too much, I mean so much that you can't preserve it, you can't give it away, and it goes to waste, right? You're not being a steward of nature and planet Earth if you're just growing food and throwing it away, right? So try and figure it out, narrow it down. If you like to give food away, factor that in. A lot of people will plant an extra plant just to give away. A lot of people will do a whole row just to give away. It's called the grocery garden row. You know, there's a whole bunch of different options you can do, but figure that out and work that into your plan. And another thing is we need to understand. So understand what plants like. Understand the temperatures that they're comfortable in. Don't just guess and don't just assume, because I can guarantee you, you're gonna be more than surprised and pleasantly surprised about what some plants will take for cold. And you're gonna be more than upset or pleasantly upset on one hand that they can't take as much heat, but on the other hand, you're gonna be impressed and very happy that because of that, you now aren't wasting your time watching all of your broccoli bolt, watching all of your lettuce bolt every year and saying, well, I didn't have a good year or whatever, when in fact, understanding how these plants like temperature and what they can do with it, then you can take it to another level and then really start to get your timings and everything right. So a lot of A lot of this comes down to the actual timing of your planting in your garden. These are all things that if you focus on them in your garden and you just start to just whittle away at them piece by piece, don't worry about some crazy cheat code method that you can do. You know, there is no up, up, down, down, left, right, A, B, A, select, start for this, you know? There is none of that. There's just good old-fashioned hard work, paying attention, and really just doing it repeatedly over and over and over again. And you will start to get it, and you will start to flourish in what you do. But focusing on, you know, the last video really focused on the negative part of it. And I felt like there wasn't enough given on the back end of it to really encourage people to do more. And to let you know basically that it's okay. That just because, you know, the cards are stacked against you doesn't mean that you can't do it. It just takes time and it takes realistic knowledge. Now, all of these things that we talked about on here, on this video today, are all the subjects that we focus on here. I know you're like, well, you just covered everything about gardening. Well, I did, but I don't look for the cheat code because I don't believe there's a cheat code. I believe in taking your garden and making it as easy as possible for you. I believe that the easiest and most possible way is the traditional method of gardening. And I also think that a lot of people overcomplicate something that is an ancient art form that is key to the survival of life. And I think it would be good for all of us to remember that moving forward and really take this as something that needs to be done in an appropriate manner, but also the higher powers that be that aren't going to give you the knowledge, I'm going to give you the knowledge that I see fit, because I feel like that's the important part of gardening, and that is what's going to make you more self-sufficient, better, and much happier with what you're doing. And that's the important part. So this is the way to make a garden grow. This is everything that you should focus on to have an absolutely amazing garden. Goodbye.